You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
Hey, lovelies. Welcome back to another episode of Get Lean and Lit with Lindy. This is the podcast for women over 40 who are done with punishing workouts, sad salads, and fitness advice that feels like it's completely out of touch with where you are currently in your life. So today we're talking about something that can cause a serious amount of emotional spiraling. It just does. So have you ever stepped on the scale and depending on those three little numbers that read out, your entire day could be in shambles, literally a mess based on those three little numbers. So been there, done that. Today we're going to talk about how as we age, how much fat loss is actually realistic each month when you're on your fat loss journey. And I want to be real super clear up front. This episode is not about lowering expectations because we really don't do that over here. Not about lowering expectations. It's about adjusting them so that they actually work in real life. Not in Delulu fantasy land. Not like I'm eating cucumbers only and I'm going to magically wake up with a six pack. We're not trying to do that. Because what I see over and over and over again is that women over 40 are doing all the right things and expecting results like as if they were 25 years old. And it's just not happening that way anymore. We have to come to grips, get real, and understand what an actual pace of fat loss looks like, a realistic one. So we're going to fix that delusion today. Okay, y'all, here's the honest situation. For most women over 40 trying to lose fat in a sustainable way, a realistic fat loss range is about 2 to 4 pounds per month, not per week. Yes, I said per month. And before anybody tries to fight me in their head or otherwise, yes, you might drop weight a little bit faster early on in your weight loss journey. But keeping it real, that's usually water weight, glycogen shifts, inflammation changes. It's basically your body saying, okay, we're at this again. We're doing this again, starting over again. But if we're talking about pure, sustainable fat loss, then 2 to 4 pounds in that range is really the sweet spot. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably saying, Lindy, I saw somebody on Instagram who lost 12 pounds in 2 weeks. That's cool. I once saw somebody claim that they made 6 figures selling digital notebooks on Amazon. That doesn't mean that it's true or that it's the norm. So let's keep it 100. Here's what actually matters and what we have to understand just as we are getting older, ladies, lovelies. After 40, we have hormonal changes. Now that's a fact. That's just a fact of life. We also have more tendency toward insulin resistance, which is also a fact. We have lower muscle mass than we did when we were in our 20s, unless we've been working super hard to preserve it. But if you haven't been doing anything, you haven't been lifting any weights, haven't been doing any body weight exercises, your muscles dwindle over time. We often have higher stress loads due to work, due to hard-headed children, aging parents, and other responsibilities. All of those things affect fat loss speed. But here's the good news. It's not all doom and gloom. The slower pace is actually what preserves muscle and keeps the weight off long term. Fat loss is not a sprint. We have to really keep that in mind. And remember, we are not sprinting. We are building a body that will still be able to function optimally at 70, 80, 90, and beyond. So there's no rush to the finish line in the instance of losing fat. You have to do it properly. You have to take your time and have consistency, but there's no rush. All right, lovelies, it is story time. Y'all know I love a good story, and most are about my former clients from when I had my personal training company years ago. So I'm going to tell you about a former client that I'll call Maria. So at the time, Maria was 48. She was super, super type A, very committed to her health and wellness journey. She was the kind of woman that brings her own protein powder to vacation, like me. So we bonded instantly. Like, she was very, very serious about what she was trying to get done. The one thing, though, she came to me eating 1,200 calories a day and just walking a ton. She was walking 10,000 steps, 15,000 steps a day. She was also doing random YouTube HIIT workouts, and she described them as feeling like punishment, but in a good way. So Maria had her own thing going on. In the first 2 weeks of us working together, she dropped roughly 6 pounds. So she was super ecstatic. She dropped 6 pounds on the scale. So she was super ecstatic. Then for the next several weeks, she did not lose 1 pound, not even an ounce. So she wasn't as ecstatic anymore. For 5 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks, I think, there was absolutely no change. She was the same weight. But she was slightly more irritable. She was getting upset. Her husband described her as emotionally fragile. So she did what a lot of women will do in those conditions. She cut her calories even lower. She actually went down to 1,000 calories per day, which is wild. And can y'all guess what happened at that point? Still nothing. But now she was exhausted, obsessed with food, and waking up at 3 a.m. fantasizing about crackers and chips. Fast carbs, basically. So it was not a good situation. So we sat back, and when we analyzed the big picture, it was clear that it wasn't an issue of her effort. Because, like I said, she was type A, she was all over things. The issue was that her body had down-regulated everything. The movement, the metabolic output, the NEAT, which is your unconscious movement, like fidgeting and just doing things that aren't part of a workout. So everything had downgraded because of her low calorie intake. So we increased her calories, not significantly at first, but over time, we increased her calories. We definitely increased her protein, had her cut out completely the random HIIT workouts from YouTube, and added 3 strength training sessions a week. Kept some of the walking, but not all of it. And ultimately, she aimed for a slower fat loss target. So long story short, after the first month of this new protocol, she lost about 3.2 pounds of fat. Now, I know 3 pounds is not super dramatic. It's not social media worthy, but it is attainable, it's steady, and more importantly, it's repeatable until you actually get to your goal. So she later told me, I stopped trying to win the fastest loser competition with myself, because she was really trying to just lose weight super fast. And that should honestly be printed on a t-shirt, because a lot of people think it's a rush to their ideal weight. And that really could not be further from the truth. So let's break down why slow fat loss is actually fast. I know it sounds kind of the opposite. Here's the paradox that nobody likes to talk about. Faster fat loss often leads to slower long-term progress. Why? Because really aggressive calorie deficits will increase your muscle loss. It'll increase your metabolic adaptation. It increases your hunger hormones, and it increases your risk for rebound weight gain once you do get to your goal weight. So when you aim for 2 to 4 pounds per month, you're actually doing something that's very powerful. You're mostly losing fat, not muscle. You're not losing your sanity, and you actually can have a social life in the process. And as I always say, muscle is the currency of aging well. It's your metabolic insurance policy. So yes, it feels slower, but it's the difference between I lost scale weight, but I feel worse, and I lost fat and I feel like myself again. So that's a big difference. Just because the scale drops doesn't mean you're losing fat. You could be losing muscle if you're not doing all the things properly. So the next story that I want to share with you guys today is about my friend, and I'm going to call her Dana. So Dana is 52. She's going to turn 53 this October. Dana was totally convinced that her body was broken. Totally convinced. Like you couldn't tell her otherwise. And that was her word, not mine. She would always say, I'm broken, I'm broken. So Dana was strength training 3 times a week, walking daily, eating mostly whole foods. And on paper, she was doing everything right. It seemed like she was just doing everything correctly. But her scale was not budging. So she would go on these plateaus. She would go for 6 weeks at a time without dropping an ounce. So she was ready to quit this healthy lifestyle and just go back to eating her normal way, which was stress snacking for the most part. So after we talked through her protocol, we just made some minor adjustments. So of course I had to tighten up her protein because that's my thing. It's always about the protein first for me. We tightened up her consistency. We kept calories steady. And instead of her getting on the scale every day, I had her track her waist measurements every 2 weeks. That cut out obsessing over the scale because that can be stressful in and of itself, and that can raise your cortisol unnecessarily. So about a month or so in, she said, this isn't working. Lindy, this is just not working. So I said, okay, let's measure your waist. She had lost 2 inches off her waist. So a couple of weeks later, the scale finally started to catch up. So you may be saying, what happened? Basically, it's called body recomposition, or recomp for short. She was actually losing fat and gaining muscle at the same time. So the scale was late to actually reflecting what was going on. So by month 3, she was down 7 pounds. She was visibly leaner. Her energy had improved, and she didn't have any guilt with her diet. She wasn't doing an extreme dieting situation at all. Her quote that really sticks with me is, I didn't need a whole new plan. I just needed consistency, patience, and Lindy's measuring tape. Hello, exactly. So lovelies, let's discuss what real progress looks like. Let's keep it real. So I want to define real progress because this is where people get things twisted. If you are losing 2 to 4 pounds per month of fat, you might also notice that your waist is shrinking before the scale actually changes. So that's where the tape measure comes in. Your clothes will start fitting differently before the scale actually changes. You might notice your strength is increasing. If you're sticking to your strength training program, your progressive resistance program, you're going to notice your strength is increasing while your weight stays stable. And you may even notice fluctuations that look like no progress, but are actually just water shifts in your body. And I need y'all to hear this really, really clearly. If your body is changing, but the scale is slow to reflect that change, the scale is not the authority over your life, okay? The scale is not the end all be all. And if the scale is gonna stress you out like that, maybe you need to put the scale away for a little bit, but don't be so beholden to those 3 numbers that your life is in a shambles if it's not reading out what you wanted to read out. It could just be reporting very late if all the other signals are moving in a positive direction. Also, you have to keep in mind your body is not a linear spreadsheet. It's more like you get some fat loss, you get some water retention, some hormonal chaos, some surprise cortisol spikes. I mean, there's a lot that is going on once we hit 40 and beyond. It kind of sucks actually, because we all want to see the scale going down if we're doing all the right things, but it is what it is. It's actually biology, and that's what it is. So if we wrap our heads around that and understand it, then you can put the scale in perspective, into its proper perspective. So now let's walk through a scenario that has either affected most of us or is currently affecting you right now. I'm going to call it the weekend undoes everything myth. I hear this talked about so much. So let's talk about it because it is just super common and it doesn't have to be the way it is. So my question to you is, are you convinced that you can never lose weight because you do great all week, Monday through Friday, and then the weekend comes and ruins everything? You eat crazy stuff on the weekends that you would never eat during the week. So translation is, you eat normally on Monday through Friday and you see salt, carbs, and wine do their thing over the weekend, and temporary water retention happens and you feel like, oh my God, I've gained all this weight. And you interpret this as fat gain. So every Monday you vow to start over. So basically this is what's going on. You're living in a 5-day calorie deficit and a 2-day surplus. Basically, Saturday and Sunday, you're probably hanging out with your family, going out with your friends, eating, drinking, doing all the things, kind of blowing your calorie budget that you set for yourself for the week. If you only change one thing, stop treating weekends like an all-out feeding frenzy. You know who you are. No, that needs to stop. That if you're on a weight loss journey, you cannot have cheat days every Saturday and Sunday and expect to reach your target. You have to focus on weekly averages, not daily perfection. And here's a fact that's super important to remember. You cannot gain 3 pounds of fat in one weekend unless you are literally eating in a calorie surplus equivalent to multiple entire days of maintenance, over your maintenance, really, level of eating. Most of us don't do that. So once you eliminate the I blew it narrative from your mind, something interesting happens. Your consistency will definitely improve. Fat loss will happen and you won't have to restart every Monday morning because you blew it over the weekend, quote unquote, blew it. And you'll have significantly less food anxiety. So if you adopt these strategies, make them a pillar of your weight loss journey, trust and believe you will feel a lot better. You will start seeing results and you'll just be a happier person overall, in my opinion. Okay, so here's your big takeaway from today's podcast. For women over 40, realistic fat loss is 2 to 4 pounds per month of actual fat loss. Okay, we're not talking about the scale just dropping because you're starving yourself or anything like that. Actual fat loss realistically is 2 to 4 pounds per month. It's not dramatic, it's not flashy, but it is deeply sustainable. And if you're doing it right, you're not just shrinking, you're rebuilding. You're building your muscles, your metabolism, your energy, and consistency that you can actually live with on a day-to-day basis. Because the goal, again, is not to lose weight as quickly as you can. That is not the goal. The goal is to stop losing and regaining the same 10 to 20 pounds for the rest of your life, because who wants to do that? We don't want to do that. We want to get to our goal weight and stay there. Maintenance. All right, lovelies. That's it for today's episode of Get Lean and Lit with Lindy. And remember, slow progress is still progress. Progress that is too fast is usually just a setup for an encore performance of something that you do not want. Okay? Keep that in mind. Slow progress is still progress. So until next time, keep it real, keep it consistent, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Boom! I just earned a $600 bonus with an Old National Bank checking account.
You got this.
I do?
Earn up to a $600 bonus when you open an eligible checking account and complete qualifying activities. Old National Bank. Just another reason to get old.
Can you say bonus?
Were you counting on a personal care assistant or autism provider who is no longer able to provide services for your child this summer? Don't panic. The Minnesota Department of Human Services just finished an urgent statewide effort to make sure providers of high-risk Medicaid services fully comply with state requirements to provide quality care. The department recently completed a top-to-bottom compliance review of almost 5,600 providers of high-risk services, including personal care assistance and autism programs. If your child's provider was disenrolled, it is time to be proactive. Let me ask you a question. Does your child have a case manager? They usually can help you find a new provider. If your child does not have one, the department will be reaching out to you directly to make sure you know how to find someone new. Understand what's happening and how to get help at mn.gov/DHS/find-care.
Our mission is to positively impact and enhance the lives of those who serve or served. So the support center, we built this as a place to really be a community center for those that we serve, those vets, those first responders, and then their families. It's a place where they can go be with other people in a safe, healthy, welcoming space. Our support center has a big focus on the arts because the arts are something that help our people heal. We have a large wood shop, a laser room where we laser engrave, wood, metal, plastic, glass, slate, all kinds of different things. And then we have an art studio where we paint and we color and we draw and thread work. And we have a 3D printer in there. Then we also have a gym. We also have access in our space to immediate access to therapists and support that way. So, when people are having a tough day or they just say, today is the day I need to talk to somebody. At a normal place, it's really hard for you to just walk in and get that support. Whereas here, we have that.